Yes, this video is called The Reason Players Want Easier Lobbies in Call of Duty. Let's listen in.
Skill-based matchmaking is everywhere in gaming, but no other community seems to push back harder than the Call of Duty community.
I don't know about that. If you remember, Fortnite actually had a pretty big thing against it at one
We're going to be
point.
uncovering why Call of Duty players dream of easier lobbies. While
It's definitely most talked about in Call of Duty,
some
though.
think that this is a new thing because Sbmm changes in Modern Warfare 2019, it's actually been around since the game started. Just like with meta loadouts, players have developed new and better ways to get easier matches as Sbmm has changed over time. And by the end of this, you'll see how much wanting easier lobbies is a core part of Call of Duty. New players or those from other games might wonder why some Call of Duty players want easier lobbies instead of facing others of the same skill level.
I mean, it's a good point, right? Like, I'm curious what he says for this.
Deeply rooted in Call of Duty's history, where players have been rewarded with things like streaks and nukes for high kill games. This has made the desire for easier lobbies a key part of the game. For example, COD even referenced this with Christmas noobs in its message of the day back in Black Ops 2.
And meanwhile, nowadays, you don't see any Christmas noobs.
Players have always wanted to reach those highs, and easier lobbies are a shortcut to get there. However, how well these methods work can depend on your skill level. Less skilled players might not see it as much of a benefit. Over the years, players have used different methods to find easier lobbies, and some of these methods worked better than others. For example, playing off-peak.
So this is going to be, I'm assuming, more of a look at how people have received easier lobbies and how that has changed, as opposed to just the skill-based matchmaking as a whole.
When fewer players are online or removing downloadable content map packs.
Shark, you said, I feel like Sbmm is necessary, but I would like to see it lowered. I hope JGod goes into what has changed with skill-based matchmaking here and why players try to navigate through it.
Tactics. According to Jack Fragg's video from January 2021, playing in off-peak hours still works relatively well. Another widely used method was
I don't think this works the way people think it does. So speaking of peak hours, okay, so say you are a 100 out of 100 good player. As a whole, even back in the day, the way that Call of Duty would work is it would try to match you with similar skill players. And generally speaking, way back in the day, that would be off of your level play time. So for example, if you're playing Call of Duty 4 and you're a 10th prestige master, you would get matched up against way more people who are around that level. And generally speaking, those players would be closer to 100 than 0. Now, playing at off-peak hours, it's not just that Sbmm is higher during those hours, it's that there's more players playing, which means that there are more top-tier players playing, which means it's more easily able to pair you with those players.
Off-peak hours still works relatively well. Another widely used method was lobby shopping, where players look at visible details about the lobby to guess its difficulty.
You can still do this. I do this when we play S&D, but we don't leave.
In some Call of Duty games, you could even see players' win-loss ratio, KD stats, to help better make that decision. Ollie shows what it looked like right here from this gameplay from BO3.
He's a 3.4 KD.
Demonstrates it here in Infinite Warfare while he's playing with Mark of J. If a lobby seems too tough, you can quickly leave and join a new one. If there are only 1 or 2 skilled players, they might leave if you start winning a lot. I even covered this back in Black Ops 4. Until around 2019, when
it was Modern Warfare
Activision
2019
to make it so that lobbies disbanded after a match. And I think this is part of their countermeasures to reduce the ability to get easier lobbies. Before dedicated servers were introduced to Call of Duty around 2013, players were forced to play on peer-to-peer connections, and this generally gave a host a huge advantage. If you played back then, you know what I mean. But some ways around this were either mess with the...
I don't even know if you remember this. This was back in the day. There was actually ways... Someone in chat just said peer-to-peer what? Yeah, so... the way that it used to work is one of the players in the lobby would actually be the host and everyone would join on their connection. So the way that there was actually a way to force it so that you would be the host every single game, giving you a huge, massive connection. Host migration was even worse. if you're a real OG, you'll remember the host migration podcast. But yeah, it was a thing. So yeah, then host migration would happen. It would switch the party leader or the lobby leader, and half the time it just wouldn't work. But yeah, that was legitimately a thing.
Matchmaking or use a router to geofence. And we'll talk a little bit more about geofencing later in the video, since it's kind of made a comeback or at least gained popularity again. In 2019, a video by Sour accidentally sparked new interest in reverse boosting by showing
which doesn't work anymore, by the way.
Access beta. Reverse boosting generally means lowering your stats on purpose to get placed in easier lobbies.
So they actually put this out there that reverse boosting no longer works because it only counts deaths by enemies. So yes, you could run into the enemies and have them kill you over and over again, but you can't jump off the mat, explode yourself or anything like that.
Even though Sour's video made it popular again, this trick was already talked about over 10 years ago, which you can see here. Another similar trick involved joining matches with players who had low stats to find easier lobbies, often called session joining. When Warzone came out in 2020, players could access lots of data through websites and API to see things like lobby strength and KD stats. Because many people had connection problems as well, they started trying to figure out how they could fix it, and
those were cool. I remember that.
Again became popular. We're going to start off with what a geofence is. A geofence creates a digital boundary that prevents your game from connecting to servers.
So I just want this video is titled "The Real Reason Players Want Easier Lobbies." I don't think he's really addressed that yet. And if he doesn't, I will.
Outside a designated area that you've selected as the player. Why would you geofence? Setting your geofence near your real world location prevents the game from connecting you halfway across the country. This proximity is going to ensure that you get a lower ping, lead to smoother, more responsive gameplay. Geofences also don't come without their drawbacks. Limiting your servers that you can connect to may lead to potentially longer wait times, or not being able to find a lobby altogether, depending on what part of the world you're in. The API also showed that it could help finding easier lobbies, which that was great, but aside.
And again, I think the finding the easier lobbies thing isn't necessarily about just the geofence making it so that you play against worse players. It's that it limits the amount of good players because it limits you to a location. There is less players it can match you with, therefore less good players, just like playing on off-peak time.
Side effect of this is that a lot of players left those sites believing that they were experts on matchmaking, even though they didn't really understand it as well as they thought. Also around this time, many websites started selling services they often called VPNs, even though they were mostly just services for geofencing. Early in Modern Warfare 2019, when players were still focused on reverse boosting and VPNs, some people had already moved on to another method that we now call two-boxing. This method is now widely talked about.
This is probably the best method that still works.
Tactics that are still kept secret by people trying to get easier lobbies. Two-boxing means using a second account or even more to host games for you, putting you in easier lobbies. This method,
they have showed that the host of the game no longer matters. It's just about the overall skill of your party that you're playing with. So sometimes when we stream Search and Destroy, for example, like we're doing today, sometimes I get in a match with world beaters like your mom or Killer Shark, and they have super high kill death, super high win loss. They win a lot of their games, and then the skill-based matchmaking kicks in and we play against better players. Or sometimes when I do the open lobbies, we get matched with a bunch of players who are worse. And generally speaking, when we go on those long win streaks, it's actually because we're playing with those worse players, and I can just absolutely go off. Now, I actually prefer to play the Search and Destroy games against better players because it makes me better. But at the same time, it is frustrating, right? So you can immediately see the difference in that already.
It combines two strategies, session joining, which we just talked about, as well as reverse boosting that's been around for a while. This solved one of the biggest problems with reverse boosting, which was that it was a lot of work and less effective over time. The new Sbmm white paper from July 2024 revealed changes that impacted and made RBing harder. It currently uses 3 skill criteria: total match kills, kill death ratio, and a new metric that measures kills compared to deaths by enemies.
What is my kill death? I have no idea.
Specifically targets the old reverse boosting trick of just blowing yourself up repeatedly. Again, another countermeasure by Activision, at least that's my opinion. I wanted to see how much of a difference two-boxing made, especially since we don't have the API for data anymore. I had an account that I'd used to test Sbmm in Cold War and other CODs, which I worked on with Drifter, Sour, Exclusive Ace. The Cold War results lean towards differences in ping, bullet registration, time to match, how long you had to wait in queue, and then also overall skill of the opponent. As a comparison to those tests, 2boxing was as effective or better than just using a low skilled account. On top of being fairly easy to do, for multiplayer, you just had to join with a low Sbmm account. If the lobby was not full, you could join on them using your main account, simply session joining. In Warzone, you can join a party with a low skilled account, like your friend or another account as host.
That's what we were talking about.
That account leave the party when the lobby begins to fill up. So it's even easier. You don't have to session join.
He still hasn't addressed the thing that I want him to address.
PR for kills going from 19 up to 29. I tried a few more matches just to make sure it wasn't a fluke, and even tested it with other players in different areas.
29 kills, pretty
On
solid.
April 27, 2024, I hosted 14 matches for Shifty, a competitive player and arguably one of the best players in the world when it comes to Warzone, and I knew wasn't already 2boxing. His PR before this test session was 43 kills.
Oh my God.
During the session, he streamed without hiding his screen to show the transparency that we were 2boxing, and it was clear we were 2boxing. Shifty managed to increase his PR 3 different times. Had 9 matches over 43 kills, so breaking his PR in 9 out of the 14 matches, his original PR, and held 42 kill average across the 14 matches, with his best match having 63 kills. This increases PR significantly, while showing that 2boxing in fact makes a huge difference.
Of course.
Many players now openly 2box on stream. For fun, for content creation, just to entertain their audiences, do troll videos, I don't know. Some people like this while others don't. As mentioned earlier,
this is, I think, where he's addressing it.
Easier lobbies is deeply ingrained in Call of Duty's culture, so this trend is unlikely to change. Activision will continue to counter these methods, but enforcing rules through their TOS is tough because they can't stop players from teaming up with friends who have lower stats.
Who are bad.
I hope you found this video useful.
Okay, so he never actually addressed the thing that I wanted him to, which is kind of unfortunate. But the thing that I wanted him to have a look at was what the title was: the real reason players want easier lobbies in Call of Duty. And I think there's 2 reasons. Number 1 is content creation. When I upload a video, it does better when the gameplay is good. And way back in the day, when I would have games or videos more focused on gameplay, I would want to have that like 10 kill death ratio, 30 kills, 10 or 3 deaths, and really go off to show off a weapon, show off something else. And I'd play for hours to get that to happen. I've changed my mentality since then. I focus a lot more on the video itself than just the gameplay, and of course story. So it's a little bit different for me now, but I remember there were days where I would just do horrible over and over again in like Modern Warfare 2, going for nukes or whatever. And it was so frustrating. So I think that's one reason, but I think that's the minor reason, because as we talked about, it's like 10% of people who watch YouTube videos or watch streams that play Call of Duty, whereas the other 90% are just average players. And why would an average player want an easier lobby? Well, it's pretty simple. It's fun to do good. Call of Duty rewards you for doing well, getting kill streaks, for example. Even some people just like grinding out wins. And if you don't win a bunch of games, it is frustrating. So that's why the engagement optimized matchmaking, not skill-based matchmaking, is a thing, so that everyone can have that rewarding feeling from the game. Now, the downside to that is you're not going to have that over and over and over again like you could in older Call of Duty games. Even when I was playing the H2M mod, I was played against about half of my games against bots and then the other half against people. When I was playing against people, I would say I got either a nuke or a chopper gunner. I got to get a chopper gunner every single game. I would get a nuke every like 2nd or 3rd game playing against real people. And these were people who had early access to the game and were good players. That's just because everything was overpowered in that game. You should watch Nero's response to that video. Okay. All right. I'll find it. Does anyone know what it's called? Oh, right there. All right, so we're responding to a response video now. Once again, about skill-based matchmaking. This is weird, but I don't know. I guess we're watching the same video again. This one, how long is this one?
Ladies
9
and
minutes, so
gentlemen,
he doesn't
welcome
talk
back
that
to the
much.
channel, and today I just finished watching a video and I wanted to do a response to it. Kind of a commentary on a commentary almost. Nothing bad or anything. It's from
You know what that means? We are doing a commentary on a commentary on a commentary.
JGod, and he posted a video saying the real reason players want easier lobbies in Call of Duty. It's a good video. You guys should go check it out. I'll put a link to it down there in the description. And in there, he kind of goes over the entire history.
I will address my point at the end
skill-based
after Nero's
matchmaking in
video.
COD and ways that fans have tried to get around skill-based matchmaking because wanting easier lobbies.
So again,
according to
I've talked about this before. Nero is the more positive blame truth.
God, and I think it's true.
You don't know who he is.
It's kind of a core part of Call of Duty's history. I mean, fans want to reach the highs of going on nuke kill streaks and getting chopper gunners and AC-130s, and facing easier players is a shortcut to achieving those goals. It makes sense, but it sort of frames COD players as these babies who just want everything handed to them. He goes on to talk about
I don't think he said that.
how, you know, there's other gaming communities out there, like there's so many games, and all of them have skill-based matchmaking, yet COD fans complain the most. And I don't think that JGod was implying that, you know, COD fans are babies, but again, if all games have skill-based matchmaking, and we're the ones whining about it, it kind of paints our community in sort of a bad light. So I'm here to say...
Okay. All right. Do I need to say this? Should I say this? Okay, we're gonna go Toxic King Slasher for a second here. We're gonna get serious. Here's the thing. Nero, I wouldn't say he's toxic. Blame truth is. But half of his videos are complaining about Call of Duty. And then someone comes in and says the Call of Duty community complains too much. And that paints the Call of Duty community in a bad light. Your channel is based off of complaining about Call of Duty. Where's the real issue? Can we say that? Does that make me a bad person? Okay, I'm done with that.
Yes, Call of Duty fans do want easier lobbies, and by easier, I just mean lobbies that aren't specifically designed to hinder you. Right, when Call of Duty was initially blowing up and taking the entire gaming world by storm, if you know, you know. If you were around back when COD was first blowing up, I'm talking like COD 4, MW2, Black Ops, like, it was crazy. And skill-based matchmaking did exist back then, but it basically did nothing. It would try to protect new players, brand new accounts.
Not true.
Essentially, and I can remember many instances where I or somebody in my friend group would just start up a brand new...
No, this isn't true at all. If you played old Call of Duties and you were, we already talked about this in this video, and you were top level, you would play against like mostly prestige players. If you opened up a new account, people would do it all the time. One person who did it, for example, was T-Mart. He would create a new account and do the 5 kill death challenge, and because he was on a new account, it was much easier than doing it on an old account.
We weren't doing it to reverse boost or anything. We would do
is that what he's saying?
Of reasons. Maybe we wanted a new gamer tag. Maybe we just wanted to restart and see how good our stats could be, or re-unlock all of our.
That might be what he was saying. I might have spoke too soon.
Free 2 weeks of Xbox Live included with a new game that we got. But either way, when somebody in our group had a new account, even back in Call of Duty 4 and World at War, if that person was the host, then the lobbies that we would join would be full of low-level players.
Yes.
Because of this, we know.
Okay, he was saying the same thing.
Okay,
sorry, I spoke too soon.
There's been lots of conflicting stories in regards to that, but my own personal, like, anecdotal experience, it was around back in the day, but it wasn't something that was ever really discussed or thought about because it really didn't do anything.
Okay, this is the thing is, yes, it was. People would create new accounts to get better gameplays all the time. Maybe it was just within the Call of Duty community, yes, and, you know, like on YouTube, but yeah, it was a thing.
Actually good back then. When you joined a match in any of the golden era CODs, it was just based on your connection, pretty much. I mean, it wasn't uncommon to see several people throughout a session who had your area code as their clan tag, and you got a real sense for how you were doing as a player in those lobbies. With everybody joining the game with connection being the only real factor, you got to see the entire spectrum of the COD community. You had horrible players, you had incredible players, and you had everything in between.
That I do agree with.
The game sets up its matchmaking in this way. The player base gets a very consistently inconsistent experience, which is what I personally crave when I'm playing an online game. With everybody in the lobby just being thrown in there with connection in mind, some matches you have bad teammates. Some matches,
I will say it before, I will say it again. If they're going to do skill-based matchmaking the way that they're doing it, your SR rating should be visible, or at least you can go into a menu and see it like you can see your kill death.
You have great teammates, and the same and
enemies as well.
The other team matches had variety, gameplay was varied, and every match was dynamic and unique, and you saw how you would perform in all these different scenarios. And when you made that transition from being someone who was consistently at the bottom of the list to somebody who's now topping the charts, you know you did something great. And it's not because of an algorithm developed by some lizard men at Activision that you did well in your match. You went out there and did that shit. You did it on your own. You didn't need to wonder if your incredible match was a gift from the engagement
Halo
gods.
is the one I always
You just did
compare it to,
because
Killer
you
Shark.
made good decisions, and you were the best player in the lobby that consisted
Halo
of your
3.
randomly selected peers. When games have variety and matches are based on your connection,
I love
you
this
actually
chopper
get a
gunner.
much more
Apparently this is what the
accurate
chopper gunner is going to look like in Black Ops 6, by the way.
Game. When you see yourself improving, and to JGod's point, putting up those big kill streaks, it felt incredible.
Yeah, that's what we talked about before.
However, with skill-based matchmaking, you don't see that same improvement. You don't get those highs or even those lows that came with Call of Duty.
Yeah, this is actually a good point.
Instead,
as much as I was saying stuff about Nero, this is a good point. He's right here. With Call of Duty now, back in the day, it was you'd have a big high, you'd have low lows, you'd have big high, low lows. Generally speaking, Call of Duty now is just trying to do this like little thing where you have like a little bit better, a little bit worse, a little bit better, a little bit worse. There's none of those big swings, and I completely agree with what he's saying
system
there.
Where every match almost feels the same, which results in a feeling.
I do
of
agree with
apathy.
that.
At least for me personally, and I'm sure it's true for many of you out there as well. You get relegated to your skill bracket, and every match pretty much feels like the one before it. The other team will always be good. They will be sweaty. They will be jump shotting around corners, but still, they're going to have one, maybe two people on their team that kind of hold them back, and the same is going to be true of your team. Basically, the top 3 or 4 people on both teams decide the outcome of the game. Blowout scores are incredibly rare. Most matches are close in terms of score, and it's also rare for somebody to put up insane numbers because everybody in the lobby is of a pretty equal skill level. Obviously, humans are fallible, circumstances vary, but in general,
great word.
Crazy scores are not something that you really see consistently anymore. It's kind of similar to the scores you see when you watch pro players playing the tournament. For example, if somebody went, say,
not as much, but yes,
5 and 22 in the game of domination in that scenario, that's a pretty good score for a scenario like
okay,
that.
I see what you're
the
saying.
same is now true of public matches where everyone is going roughly even. The idea is to get everyone's stats as close to 1 as possible. The days of going 50 and 3 because you played well, got lucky with your kill streaks, and because you weren't playing against a full party of Twitch streamers are mostly behind us. Occasionally matches like that will slip through the cracks, but they are quickly adjusted with Activision's matchmaking
I agree
system
with everything he's saying here.
You for doing too good. You compare all.
Do you remember what I was saying about him complaining about people complaining about the Call of Duty community, and now he's complaining? Just saying.
All that to what it was like back in the day, and I think it's pretty clear why people want quote-unquote easier lobbies in COD. It's because back in the day, COD was fun. It was simple. It was relaxing. It was a
wrong.
Core
I will address it in a second.
Development as teenagers and as young adults. It's a franchise that we love, and the games were so enjoyable because the better.
Okay, I'll tell you. I will tell you why he's wrong, and then I will address it after he finishes up. What percentage of people who currently play Call of Duty do you think played old Call of Duties? That's all I will say for now.
We got, the better we performed. We didn't have an artificial feeling when we did well in the game. What we felt was a true, uncontaminated sense of accomplishment, and that feeling is what kept us playing the game more and more because we could get better and better and keep on reaping the rewards of our efforts.
This part I agree
Call of Duty does not have that anymore, and these other communities who complain about skill-based matchmaking, don't get me wrong, but not nearly as much as the COD community does, well, they haven't been around as long as COD. The sad truth is, like, the new gen of gamer don't even really know what it's like to play a game that was not designed by literal psychologists trying to milk every last second of player retention, player engagement, and cash from the pocket of the player base.
Okay, so now we're going in.
Used to be made for fun. Of course, they made a ton
Do I
of
agree
money
with this?
off of it. Obviously, they are a business, but the more money a game made back in the day, likely the more fun it was. Problem is, now they're trying to take full control and monetize the fun fun that players have in an effort to milk them for as much as they can. And that is such a dark, dystopian
Somewhat
way to
agree.
go about things,
Somewhat agree.
especially when Call of Duty used to be the exact opposite of that. And COD is not the only game franchise like that. Madden is another prime example of that. I'm not going to go on this for too long.
I think that 30% number is a pretty good guess.
All about just innovation, making the games as fantastic as possible, beating out the competition back when they were allowed to have competition. It was great. Then they came up with Ultimate Team, where every year they could try to milk hundreds of dollars from every person in the player base to try to pay to win themselves to the top of Ultimate Team. And then modes like Franchise, modes like My Player, modes
Wait,
like
we're talking about Madden now?
they all went down the gutter because they found their cash cow, and that's all they care about. The same is true of Call of Duty. It used to be that the game sold because it was fun, it was engaging, it was enjoyable, and the better people were, the better they performed in the game without the matchmaking system deliberately trying to hinder them in an effort to make other people feel better. They've essentially found a way to monetize the fun that the player base has, and that is the biggest problem. Call of Duty's been around for so long that many of us...
This is hard for me to argue because I agree, but you want more Call of Duty games, it needs to make money.
Remember what it was like before all this started happening, and that's why we're so vitriolically against skill-based matchmaking and why we talk about it so much, because there's still that sliver of hope that someday we're going to go back to the golden era of video games. Like, hopefully someday matchmaking
this is
bubble
the part I
going to
disagree
pop
with.
the same way loot boxes did. But I'm not sure it's ever going to happen because it's way harder for them to legislate stuff like skill-based matchmaking as compared to legislating gambling. And
You're not... Okay, we've got off the rail. We're gonna legislate matchmaking? Are you crazy?
Drops and things of that nature. Ladies and gentlemen, there you guys have it. I saw that.
You want Donald Trump to come in and be like, we are running... Has anybody played Call of Duty? Call of Duty, best game in the world, best game. Has anyone played it? Lately I've been playing, kill death dropping, everyone else going up. Can't do it. We need to put into a law, effective immediately. I only play against bad players. Bad players only. End of story.
JGod video today. Again, it's a good video. He goes over, like, it's very, like, well detailed. He obviously did, like, a ton of research. Like, he went through and, like, did the entire history basically of how people try to get around skill-based matchmaking. But I want to talk about the
he would say that.
reasoning for why people hate skill-based matchmaking. I mean, maybe sure there are some just whiny people out there that just want every game to be easy for them. Whereas I think a lot
milking
of people,
it is live service games, yes,
to be a game again, as compared to the monetization experiment that it's become. Ladies and gentlemen, that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it.
So this is why I disagree with what he's saying. Jokes aside, what he's saying is inherently wrong because I don't think the majority of people playing Call of Duty actually played old Call of Duty games. Maybe like going back to Modern Warfare 2019, things like that. Yes, 100% that did happen. But I think like he's talking about the golden age, Black Ops 1, Modern Warfare 2, Modern Warfare 3, Black Ops 2, those games. I think the 30% number is probably a good guess. 30% of people who play Call of Duty currently were actually played those games. In the Call of Duty community on YouTube, I bet you that's way higher. I bet you it's like 80%. But as a whole, people who play the game, it's probably like 30. And therefore, they don't know what it was like back then, yet they all still want easier lobbies. And I think it goes back to what I said before, where it actually comes down to just wanting to do better, and the easier your lobbies are, the better you do, the better the game feels. Now, there is the reverse of that. Like, if you've ever played against bots and you just thrash them, that's not fun either. So there is that middle ground there. I was good with the impression. I don't know about that one. But yeah, those are my thoughts on it. Of course, everyone wants easier lobbies, but I don't think it has anything to do with the older Call of Duty games. And both of them said that in their videos. Oh, inherently, this is what people have always wanted. Well, people who play Call of Duty now didn't play those games back then. How many years ago did Modern Warfare 2 come out? 16? How many of you watching this are younger than 16? How many of you are younger? I feel like you got to be even older than that, because then you'd be like like if you're 20, you'd be 4 when Modern Warfare 2 is coming out. Like, you're not playing that game. So like that point is null and void. It has to do with how the game feels now. And inherently, Call of Duty is designed to feel good when you do good. And when the game design or skill-based matchmaking makes it so you never have those peaks, that's the issue. That's why people want easier games, is because they want those peaks. They want to succeed in some sense. And just wait, when Omni Movement comes in, that skill gap is going to be even higher, which is going to make skill-based matchmaking even more strict. So stay tuned. But yeah, let's play some Call of Duty.